Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to tell you a story of someone I encountered and became friendly with in prison. I'm going to tell you why he was there and what a fucked up scenario it is. I hope that you guys can take from these stories the right message. And that right message is always be very careful out there. You never know what the fuck could happen, and one wrong move and it's all gone. It's over like that. No second chances. And that's what happened to this guy. All right. So this is when I was towards the end of my prison bid. Okay. And I was in a maximum security prison. And I remember one day, I was one of the younger people there. Actually, I think there was maybe one or two other people that were as young or around my age. Most of them were older people. Most of the guys there were lifers. I was definitely the shortest sentence there. I was the only one that was going home. The state tried to punish me and putting me in a unit where everybody was doing 25, 30 years or better, all the way up to double life, 300 years, crazy sentences. They thought I was going to get beat up or have problems in there, but that wasn't the case. Anyway, back to the story. One day we go out to the yard, outdoor rec, and this was one of the times we went out at nighttime. It was like 7 o'clock at night during the winter. It's already dark, and it's all caged in. It's just a big cage, basically. People walk around in circles in the cage or whatever they want to do push-ups, work out. And there was this one guy that was always standing in the corner of this cage by himself, with his headphones on, just not talking to anybody, minding his own business, very quiet. And one day I was, I was also likewise very quiet to myself, especially because at this point I was new to this prison. So one day I happened to just walk by him, and he said something to me. I don't know what he said. What's up, man? He said hello. He just reached out and started a conversation in some way, probably because we were the youngest two people on that yard. And he and I started talking. I saw that he was a cool guy. He was, he wasn't there for any bullshit. And he told me his story, after a while of us talking. And we just gave basic backgrounds of what we were doing in there. So as crazy as my story was, mine was crazy because I had all kinds of charges, and it was multiple agencies investigating me. It was a big thing. I got charged in many, many different capacities, a lot of conspiracies and crazy, complex legal case, whereas his was the opposite. His was very straight, one charge. That's it. Life in prison. And when he told me what happened, it really troubled me. It really bothered me because I, myself, have been in that same situation so many times, and it could have been me with that life sentence. So what he told me happened was, him and his friends were out one night. It was him and actually just one other guy, him and his best friend. And they went out one night and they were at a pool hall. So they're shooting pool. Now don't get me wrong, this guy was not an angel on the street. He carried a gun with him on the street, which I don't give a fuck about. People carry guns all the time. Cops carry guns all the time. I don't hold that against anyone. I myself carried weapons for many, I don't want to get into the details. But anyway, so they're in the pool hall. His friend goes outside because he saw a girl that he recognized, that he knew. So the guy that I'm with, he stayed shooting pool. He stayed inside. The friend started, he took much too long out there. So this guy went outside to check on him and find out what's going on. He walks outside to the parking lot of his pool hall and sees that his friend, his best friend, is surrounded by a group of guys. All right, so he tries to go out there and see what's going on, and as soon as they saw him coming and trying to defend his friend, they jumped him. They jumped his friend that was in the middle of the circle. They started beating the shit out of him real bad. They then turned to this guy and started beating him real bad. So they were outnumbered. Like he told me it was like at least 10 to 12 guys beating on them. All right, so as this whole fight is happening, of course he had a gun on him. He didn't want it to come to that. He told me. He said, I had no intention of using this gun. But these guys would not stop, and they had me on the ground and they were stomping me. So he said he pulled out the gun thinking that they're going to stop. And the guy's on the ground when he pulled the gun out, thinking that that's going to scare them and stop this beating. Instead, it didn't have that effect. And they tried to continue beating him. So what he did was he just shot the one guy that was the biggest aggressor and closest to him. Shot him, and the guy died right on the spot. Dropped dead. Done. Finished. When that happened, that actually had the effect he wanted, and they all stopped, started running, took off, and that was the end of the fight. But going back to what I said in the beginning, guys, this guy had no intention of hurting anybody. He didn't want to hurt anybody. Even while they were fucking stomping him and his friend, he didn't want it to come to that. He didn't want to pull the gun out. So that one decision, and it wasn't even a wrong decision, it was a right decision that I would have done also, to try to intervene and help somebody. I've helped strangers that have been in that situation where they're getting outnumbered and jumped, and this was his best friend, so of course I would have done the same thing. Most of you would have done the same thing. And this poor guy, life. That's his sentence. Life with no parole. He's finished. And at the time that this story took place, that he and I crossed paths, he was 22 years old. And I was around the same age. We were real young. And to this day, there are other stories that I'm going to share with you also about people who had similar situations. But to this day, for some reason, I think it's because we were so close in age and we were the youngest in that environment at that time. I still think about this guy sometimes. I still think about him. This is years later. And when I think about him, all I can think is, man, first, of course, that could have been me. Even though I wasn't down for a murder, I was facing life in prison. And I'm so blessed and thankful. My first feeling is, thank God, thank you for saving my life. I'm forever grateful and indebted. And my next thought is, I've been home for years already. And this poor guy, he's going to sit there forever. He's never, ever going to get out. He's never, ever going to taste freedom. He'll never be able to walk outside of those cages. He'll never be able to be with a woman, get married, have children, have a life, have a job. Nothing. And as the years pass and I continue to get older and life goes on, this poor guy's going to be there. Nothing's going to change for him. He's still in that same fucked up spot that I was in with him. And it really troubles me and bothers me. It really does. And not to say that, I don't feel bad for someone dying. Actually, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. Shit happens. I don't believe this guy should have got life in prison. That's one of the problems with the state of New Jersey where I live and he lives. We don't have a self-defense clause as far as defense in legal situations. You're basically fucked. There is no claim of self-defense and taking another one's life. It doesn't exist. And because of that, this guy had no chance. Life's over. So as I remember, not only him, many other people who will forever be in these situations, it just increases my gratitude even more. I feel unbelievably grateful that I'm out. And there are times that I get down on myself, I suffer with depression, and I feel real fucked up. There are times I get angry at life and I want to do crazy shit. And I always remember and think back, man, I don't want to be back in there. I don't want to be back in that fucking cage, having those kind of conversations, wondering if we're ever going to fucking taste freedom again. I don't want that. So the point of this, as is with all my stories, guys, just think carefully. Think very carefully about what the fuck you do. Because one wrong move, and it's over. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.